The morning air at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado carries salt and diesel fuel, but Commander Jason Keene's voice cuts sharper than either. He stands at the threshold of the outdoor range, arms crossed, watching a figure in digital camo approach the shooting line. His words drop like stones into cold water. "Staff Sergeant, that's what your collar says, but I've seen desk clerks with more field presence than you." The woman doesn't respond. She sets her rifle case down with deliberate care, the kind of precision that suggests muscle memory runs deeper than rank insignia. Her name tape reads Vance. The patch on her right shoulder shows a medical corps insignia, the caduceus worn but intact. Jason turns to the cluster of SEALs behind him. 4 men who've been running drills since 0400. They're tired, sweaty, and looking for entertainment. He delivers it with a lazy gesture toward the targets downrange. "You know what I love about Coronado? Standards. Real standards. Not the participation trophy kind they hand out at admin schools." Lieutenant Blake Harmon, 6'2" and built like a linebacker, grins. He's the kind of operator who thinks volume equals authority. His voice booms across the range with practiced mockery. "Hey, Doc, you sure you're in the right place? Infirmary's back that way. We can get someone to walk you." Mara Vance lifts her rifle from the case. An M4 carbine, well-maintained but not new. The stock shows wear marks consistent with field deployment, not armory shelf life. She checks the chamber with movements that are economical, practiced, and completely silent. Jason watches her hands. There's something about the way she handles the weapon that doesn't quite match the medical corps patch. The grip is too firm, the angle too tactical. But he pushes the observation aside, because his audience is waiting, and his point needs landing. "Tell you what, Doc." He picks up an M17 sidearm from the equipment table and tosses it onto the gravel. The metal clinks against stone. "Hit the 600-meter steel twice. Do that, and I'll call you soldier. Miss, and you clean the range after we're done. All of it." Chief Derek Nash, leaner than Blake but twice as calculating, pulls out his phone. He's already composing the group chat message in his head. This is content. This is the kind of moment that gets shared in SEAL circles with laughing emojis and commentary about standards slipping. Mara doesn't touch the M17. She walks to the firing line with her M4, settles into position, and adjusts her scope with 3 precise clicks. Her breathing changes. 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 seconds held, 4 seconds out. The rhythm is clinical, automatic, and completely invisible to anyone not watching closely. But Chief Ramirez is watching. He's 70 yards away, running a maintenance check on the adjacent lane's target system. 20 years in special operations has taught him to recognize patterns that don't fit. That breathing technique isn't standard infantry. It's not even standard SEAL. It's something taught in very specific schools to very specific people who operate in very specific situations. The first shot breaks clean. 600 meters downrange, the steel target rings with a sound that carries across the morning stillness. Ping. Jason's smile doesn't falter, but his eyes narrow. Lucky shot. Has to be. Wind conditions are tricky this early, and that medical corps patch doesn't come with advanced marksmanship credentials. The second shot follows 3 seconds later. Ping. The range goes quiet. Blake stops grinning. Derek's thumb hovers over his phone screen, message unsent. Even Instructor Evan Cole, who's been leaning against the range tower with professional boredom, straightens up and squints downrange. Mara rises from her position. She doesn't clear her weapon yet, just stands there, rifle at low ready, face completely neutral. Jason walks over, trying to salvage his authority with skepticism wrapped in false praise. "Nice trick. Really? Who taught you that?" She turns to face him. Her eyes are gray, the color of overcast sky over cold water. When she speaks, her voice is quiet enough that only Jason and the SEALs within 10 feet can hear. "You did." The words make no sense. Jason has never seen this woman before today. He's certain of that. He remembers faces, especially faces he's trained. It's part of what made him a good instructor before he made commander, but there's something in the way she says it, a certainty that doesn't match the impossibility of the statement. Blake recovers first because he's not smart enough to recognize cognitive dissonance. He barks out a laugh that sounds forced even to his own ears. "Oh, this is rich. Doc's delusional. Maybe we should get her an appointment with Psych." Derek's already typing now, crafting the narrative before the moment fully passes. His phone screen glows with the draft message to the SEAL Team 9 group chat. "New corpsman thinks she's operator material. Did 2 lucky shots at 600. Keene's letting her think she's hot stuff before reality check." But reality is already checking itself, in ways none of them can see yet. Chief Ramirez sets down his tools and walks closer, staying at the edge of the scene but within earshot. That breathing pattern, that grip, that response time between shots. He's seen it before, but not in anyone wearing Staff Sergeant chevrons. If you're wondering how this story ends, hit that like button and subscribe. This is one you'll want to see through to the finish. And if you're feeling generous, that thanks button helps us bring you more stories like this one. Mara returns to her rifle case and begins breaking down her weapon. The movements are methodical, the kind of ritual that happens when someone's done it 1,000 times in 1,000 different locations. Jason watches her hands again, that nagging sense of wrongness growing stronger. "Where'd you deploy?" he asks. It's meant to sound conversational, but there's an edge to it, an interrogation wearing casual clothes. Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan? Her answers come without embellishment or pride, just facts delivered in the same neutral tone she's maintained since arriving. Doing what? Setting up aid stations? Whatever needed doing. It's not a satisfying answer. Jason wants specifics because specifics can be checked, verified, or more importantly, discredited. But Mara's already secured her rifle case and is walking toward the exit, her duty apparently complete. Blake moves to intercept, because physical presence is his primary tool, and he's not ready to let this go. He plants himself in her path, close enough to violate personal space, but not quite close enough to justify a formal complaint. "Hold up, Doc. We're not done here. You got lucky with those shots. Everyone knows it. Wind was in your favor, and that scope probably has some generous adjustment someone did for you beforehand." Mara stops. She doesn't step back or around him, just stops and waits with a patience that somehow makes Blake's aggressive posture look childish by comparison. "The scope is factory 0, she says. Wind was 3 knots from the northeast. I adjusted 1 click right, half click up. Standard compensation for 600 meters in these conditions." The technical precision of her answer catches Blake off guard. He's used to people being intimidated, flustered, or angry. This clinical breakdown of ballistics isn't in his playbook. Derek seizes the moment because social warfare is his domain. He turns his phone around, showing the group chat that's already lighting up with responses to his message. Laughing emojis, memes, commentary that ranges from mocking to outright hostile. "You're famous now, Doc. Team's talking about you. They're calling you Field Barbie. Thought you should know." Mara glances at the screen without reading the messages. Her expression doesn't change. No anger, no hurt, no reaction at all. She just shifts her rifle case to her other hand and continues walking. This non-reaction bothers Derek more than tears would have. He's spent years learning how to identify pressure points and exploit them. But you can't exploit what you can't see, and Mara's giving him nothing to work with. Jason watches her go, his mind already working through the problem she represents. That shooting was too clean. That breathing technique was too practiced. And that answer, "you did," keeps circling back like a riddle without solution. He pulls out his own phone and opens the personnel database. Vance, Mara, Staff Sergeant, E6, Military Occupational Specialty, Combat Medic Specialist. Previous assignments: 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, Naval Medical Center, San Diego. Standard progression for a corpsman with field experience. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explains advanced marksmanship or that strange moment of recognition she seemed to have. But there's a gap in her service record, 26 months between her last deployment and her arrival at Coronado. The notation just says, "Special Assignment, Restricted Access." That's not uncommon for personnel who've worked in sensitive positions, but it's also conveniently vague. Jason taps the restricted access notation. It doesn't open. Instead, a message appears. "Clearance insufficient. Contact JSOC Personnel Security for access request." JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. That's unusual for a corpsman. Medical personnel sometimes get attached to special operations units, but their records don't typically get routed through JSOC administrative channels. Jason closes the phone. This woman is becoming more interesting and more problematic by the minute. By 0800 hours, the story of Field Barbie has spread beyond Team 9. The group chats are multiplying, each one adding embellishments to the narrative. In some versions, she barely hit the targets. In others, she broke down crying after. Derek's doing his best to curate the message, making sure each iteration makes Mara look worse, and his team look more justified in their mockery. Mara spends the morning in the medical bay, doing the unglamorous work that corpsmen do when they're not deployed. Inventory checks, supply orders, reviewing training schedules for combat lifesaver certification courses. Jake Willis, a hospital corpsman who's been at Coronado for 3 years, works at the desk across from her. "You're the one they're talking about," he says. Not a question. "The shots at the range. Apparently. How'd you learn to shoot like that?" Mara looks up from her clipboard. Her eyes meet Jake's with a directness that makes him want to look away, but he holds his ground because he's genuinely curious, not hostile. "Practice," she says. Then, after a pause that suggests she's deciding how much to share, "Lots of practice." Jake nods. He's been watching the group chat messages roll in all morning. The memes, the jokes, the casual cruelty that military culture sometimes mistakes for camaraderie. It bothers him because he's seen Mara's work in the Bay. She's precise, knowledgeable, and completely professional. The disconnect between the person he's worked alongside and the caricature being painted online doesn't match. "For what it's worth," he says, "I think it's impressive. Appreciate it." She goes back to her inventory checklist, but Jake catches something he hasn't noticed before. When she writes, her hand moves across the page with the same economical precision she uses for everything else. No wasted motion, no hesitation. And her grip on the pen is wrong for a right-handed person doing administrative work. It's the grip of someone who's held that pen in tactical situations where writing quickly and clearly could mean the difference between mission success and failure. Lunchtime brings the next escalation. The DFAC, the dining facility, is crowded with personnel from multiple units. Mara gets her tray and looks for a seat. Most of the tables are full, but there's space at one near the back. She heads that way. Blake's voice carries across the room before she's halfway there. "Hey everyone, Field Barbie's here. Make sure your gear is secured. We wouldn't want her thinking she's qualified to touch it." Laughter ripples through the SEALs section. Not everyone joins in. Some look uncomfortable, but enough laugh that the sound feels collective, official, like consensus agreement that this mockery is acceptable. Mara sits down. She eats methodically, the way she does everything. Across the room, Derek's phone is out again, taking a photo. The angle is calculated to make her look isolated, small, defeated. He'll post it later with a caption about how standards are slipping and anyone can wear the uniform these days. But then something unexpected happens. Chief Ramirez enters the DFAC, gets his food, and walks directly to Mara's table. He sits down across from her without asking permission or explaining himself. The message is clear. She's not as isolated as Blake and Derek want everyone to believe. "That breathing technique you used this morning," Ramirez says quietly. 4-4-4 pattern. "Where'd you learn that?" Mara chews her food, swallows, and takes a sip of water before answering. "Training." "What kind of training?" "The kind where breathing matters." Ramirez smiles. It's not a friendly smile or a mocking one. It's the smile of someone who's just confirmed a suspicion. He doesn't push for more details. Instead, he eats his lunch in comfortable silence. His presence at the table, a shield, whether Mara asked for one or not. Jason watches this interaction from 3 tables over. Ramirez's involvement complicates things. The chief is respected, one of those senior enlisted who've seen enough combat and trained enough operators that their opinion carries weight. If he's defending this woman, others might start questioning the narrative Derek's been building. The afternoon brings technical escalation. Mara's scheduled for the Advanced Combat Medicine course, a qualification that would give her credentials to work with special operations units in austere environments. It's competitive, limited slots, and requires recommendation from a senior medical officer. At 1400 hours, she receives an email. Her slot has been reassigned. The reason given? Incomplete field proficiency documentation. The email is signed by Lieutenant Commander Brooks, but the recommendation for removal came from Commander Keene. Mara reads the email twice, then closes her laptop. She doesn't appeal or argue or send angry responses. She just adds it to the growing list of obstacles being placed in her path, each one documented with the same methodical precision she applies to everything else. Before we continue, if you're invested in seeing how this plays out, drop a comment, let us know what you think happens next, and share this with someone who appreciates a good underdog story. By 1500 hours, the sabotage becomes more direct. Mara returns to her locker to find it's been inspected. Her gear is scattered, equipment pulled out and examined. A note on official letterhead states that a routine safety check found unauthorized medical supplies in her possession. The supplies in question are standard-issue IFAC components, the kind every combat medic carries. But the report makes them sound suspicious, irregular, possibly evidence of black market activity or preparation for unauthorized treatment. Luis Vargas, the petty officer first class who conducted the inspection, stands nearby watching her reaction. He's hoping for anger, for a confrontation he can document and add to the growing file of incidents surrounding this problematic corpsman. Mara photographs everything: the scattered gear, the note, the serial numbers on the medical supplies that match her official equipment log. She doesn't confront Vargas or demand explanations. She just documents, restores order to her locker, and continues her day. But the accumulation is taking its toll in ways that don't show on her face. Each incident alone might be dismissed as misunderstanding or bad luck. Together, they form a pattern of systemic harassment designed to force her out. And the people orchestrating it are good at this. They've done it before to people they deemed unfit for the culture they're protecting. Instructor Evan Cole intercepts her on the way to the equipment room at 1600 hours. He's been watching the situation unfold with professional interest. Cole prides himself on being a talent evaluator, someone who can separate genuine ability from lucky performance. That morning's shooting bothered him because it was too clean, too professional. Now, he wants his own test. Vance, got a minute? Yes, sir. I've been reviewing your file. Says here you qualified expert with rifle and pistol during your last cycle. But qualifying on a static range is different from performing under pressure. You understand that, right? Yes, sir. So let's run a scenario. Just you, me, and a stress shoot. 5 targets, mixed distances, time limit. If you can perform under pressure like you did this morning, I'll personally recommend you for remedial advanced training. But if you can't, we'll have a conversation about whether Coronado is the right fit for your skill level. It's a trap, but a sophisticated one. If Mara refuses, it looks like she's afraid to prove herself. If she accepts and fails, it validates everything Jason and his team have been saying. If she accepts and succeeds, Cole will find technical reasons to discredit the performance. Mara's well aware of this dynamic. She's seen it before in different contexts, different locations. The no-win scenario designed to look fair while ensuring predetermined failure. But she also knows something Cole doesn't. She's not trying to win. She's trying to collect evidence. When, sir? Now. Range is clear. Just you and me. Nice and simple. They walk to the range in silence. Cole sets up the course while Mara prepares her weapon. The targets are positioned at varying distances, 50 to 300 meters. The time limit is aggressive, designed to induce stress and force mistakes. Cole holds the timer, his thumb ready on the start button. On your mark, he says. Mara settles into her stance. That breathing pattern again, 444. Her heart rate drops instead of rising. It's a physiological response that comes from training far beyond standard military courses, the kind of conditioning that rewires stress responses at a neurological level. Mark. The timer starts. 5 targets, 6 seconds between each engagement. Mara moves through the course with mechanical precision. First target at 50 meters, center mass, 2 rounds. Transition to 100 meters, single shot to head. Back to 75 meters, 2 rounds center mass. Out to 300 meters, prone position, controlled breathing, single shot. Final target at 200 meters. She's standing again, rifle shouldered, and this time she pauses. Just half a second, barely noticeable. But in that pause, her eyes flick to the observation tower where she knows cameras are recording. Then she fires. Center mass, course complete. Cole checks the timer, 28 seconds. Every target hit, most in kill zones. It's performance that exceeds SEAL qualification standards, and she did it with a medical corps patch on her shoulder. He walks downrange to inspect the targets, buying time to figure out how to spin this. When he returns, his face is professionally neutral, but there's calculation behind his eyes. Adequate, he says, but I noticed hesitation on that last target. Hesitation gets people killed in the field. I'll note that in my report. Mara doesn't argue. She just nods, breaks down her weapon, and waits to be dismissed. But what Cole doesn't know is that the hesitation was deliberate. That glance toward the camera was intentional, because somewhere, someone is watching, and that half-second pause is a signal. At JSOC headquarters in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Admiral Sarah Lowell reviews the day's surveillance footage from Coronado. She sees the range performance, the DFAC incident, the locker inspection, the stress shoot. Everything is unfolding exactly as predicted. Commander Keen is behaving true to form, and his team is following his lead with predictable enthusiasm. "How much longer?" asks the officer beside her. "Soon," Lowell says. "Let him commit a little more. We need the pattern documented beyond any possible deniability." Back at Coronado, evening brings the next phase. Jason calls a meeting in the war room adjacent to the range complex. It's officially a safety review following the morning's incident, but everyone knows what it really is. A formal process to recommend Mara's transfer, supported by documentation, witnessed by multiple personnel, completely by the book, and completely devastating. Mara receives the summons at 1700 hours. She's to report to the war room at 1730, prepared to discuss her qualifications, her performance, and her suitability for duty at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. The message is professional, procedural, and absolutely designed to intimidate. She arrives at 1725, 5 minutes early, because being late would give them ammunition they don't need. The war room is already occupied. Jason sits at the head of the table. Blake and Derek flank him. Evan Cole stands near the tactical displays. Luis Vargas operates the camera system, officially recording for training purposes but really documenting what they believe will be Mara's professional dismantling. 12 SEALs fill the remaining chairs, most of them looking uncomfortable but unwilling to speak against their commander. 2 instructors from other units attend as witnesses. The room feels like a tribunal pretending to be a review. Chief Ramirez enters last, uninvited but unchallenged. He positions himself near the back, arms crossed, watching everything with the patient attention of someone who knows this isn't what it appears to be. Jason begins with false courtesy. "Staff Sergeant Vance, thank you for coming. We need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your performance and your fit within this command." Mara stands at a position that's not quite attention, but not quite at ease. Centered, balanced, hands loosely at her sides. She doesn't speak, just waits for him to continue. "This morning, you demonstrated marksmanship skills that seem inconsistent with your training record. This afternoon, you participated in an evaluation that raised questions about your ability to perform under pressure. And throughout the day, there have been reports of equipment irregularities and potential safety violations." He slides a folder across the table. It contains the accumulated documentation from the day's incidents. The inspection report, Cole's assessment, screenshots of group chat messages framed as unit cohesion concerns, photos of her sitting alone in the DFAC, captioned to suggest isolation and poor integration. "I'm recommending your transfer to a post where your skills might be better utilized, somewhere with less demanding operational tempo and lower risk exposure. It's not personal, it's about maintaining standards." The room is silent, waiting for her response. Blake smirks. Derek has his phone ready to capture whatever reaction comes. Even the uncomfortable SEALs seem resigned to this outcome, because fighting a commander's decision is career suicide, and everyone knows it. Mara looks at the folder. She doesn't touch it or read through the contents. Her eyes move from the documents to Jason's face, holding his gaze with an intensity that makes him want to look away first. But he doesn't, because that would show weakness in front of his men. "With respect, sir," she says quietly, "I believe there are some facts you're not aware of." "Really? Enlighten me." She reaches into her cargo pocket, moving slowly enough that no one can claim she's reaching for a weapon. What she pulls out is a small object, metal, worn. She sets it on the table between them. It's a challenge coin, but not a standard issue one. This coin is different. Dark metal, unusual markings, and along the edge, a serial number that's been partially worn away by time and handling. Jason stares at it. His face goes through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, denial, and finally a fear that he can't quite hide, because he's seen that coin before, or more specifically, he's seen where that coin comes from. "Where did you get that?" His voice has lost its commanding tone. Now it's just shock wearing the shape of words. But before Mara can answer, before anyone can process what's happening, the facility loses power. Every light in the war room cuts out simultaneously. Emergency lighting kicks in after 3 seconds, bathing everything in red. And in those 3 seconds of absolute darkness, something fundamental shifts in the room's dynamic. When the red lights illuminate faces again, Mara is still standing in the same position, but her posture has changed. Shoulders back, weight centered, hands now definitely at ease in a way that suggests she's the most comfortable person present. Jason's still staring at the coin, but now his hand is shaking slightly. The power outage wasn't random. The timing was too perfect. And that means someone with serious authority is watching this meeting, someone with the capability to cut power to specific buildings on a military installation. Somewhere in the equipment room, someone has activated a protocol that only exists for the highest level operations. And the woman standing in front of them, the one they've been mocking and sabotaging all day, somehow has access to people who can do that. The emergency power stabilizes. Regular lighting flickers back on, but the atmosphere in the room has changed completely. The confident hostility from earlier is gone, replaced by uncertainty and the first creeping edges of doubt. Jake Willis, who's been watching from the doorway, feels his professional curiosity transform into something more serious. That coin, that power outage, that look on Commander Keen's face. Something's very wrong here, or very right, depending on your perspective. Chief Ramirez hasn't moved, but his eyes have narrowed. He's putting pieces together, memories from operations he's not supposed to talk about aligning with the woman standing in front of them. That breathing technique, that shooting, that complete lack of fear despite being outnumbered and outranked in a hostile room. Derek's phone buzzes. He glances at the screen and goes pale. The message is from a number he doesn't recognize, but the content is clear. Delete the group chat messages. All of them. Now. He looks up at Mara, then at his phone, then back at her. She hasn't moved, hasn't touched a phone, hasn't signaled anyone. But somehow, someone knows exactly what he's done and exactly how to find him. Luis Vargas checks his camera system and discovers that the last 30 minutes of recording have been encrypted. The files are still there, but they're locked with a security protocol he doesn't have clearance to access. Someone with higher authority has taken control of his equipment. Blake, never the smartest person in any room, tries to recover the situation with aggression. He stands up, using his size to intimidate. This is ridiculous. Some trick with the lights and a fake coin doesn't change anything. You're still just a staff sergeant who got lucky this morning. Mara turns to face him fully. When she speaks, her voice is still quiet, but there's steel underneath that wasn't apparent before. Lieutenant Harmon, I need you to sit down. It's not a request. It's not a command either, because she doesn't have the rank to command him. But something in the way she says it, some certainty that goes beyond military hierarchy, makes Blake hesitate. And that hesitation is enough to make him look weak in front of everyone watching. Jason recovers his composure, trying to reclaim control of the situation. Staff Sergeant, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this meeting isn't... The speaker system crackles to life. A woman's voice, calm and authoritative, fills the room. Commander Keen, this is Admiral Lowell, JSOC Operations. You are instructed to pause this proceedings immediately. All personnel are to remain in place until further notice. The room freezes. JSOC doesn't make casual calls to unit reviews. JSOC doesn't intervene in personnel transfers. JSOC only gets involved when something connects to special operations at the highest classification levels. Jason's mind races through possibilities, each one worse than the last. That coin, that missing 26 months in Mara's record, that special assignment, restricted access notation he couldn't open this morning. The pieces are assembling into a picture he desperately doesn't want to see. Admiral, with respect, this is an internal matter for... It ceased being internal when you filed transfer papers without checking classified personnel flags. Stay where you are, Commander. We're reviewing documentation now. The speaker cuts off. The silence that follows is thick enough to feel physical. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. They're all waiting for the other shoe to drop, and they can feel it coming but can't see the shape of it yet. Mara remains standing, centered, calm. Her right hand moves to her left wrist, adjusting her watch band. It's a casual gesture, meaningless to most people in the room, but Chief Ramirez catches it, and his eyes widen fractionally. Because that's not a watch adjustment. That's a tactical signal, the kind used in operations where radio silence is mandatory and hand signals mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. And just like that, Ramirez knows exactly who he's looking at. Not a staff sergeant, not a corpsman who got lucky with a rifle, but something else entirely, something so classified that even acknowledging its existence would require clearance he doesn't have. The lights flicker once more, but don't cut out. A test. Or maybe a reminder that someone out there has their finger on more than just the electrical system. Jason's hand is still shaking. Blake is still half standing, frozen in his failed attempt to intimidate. Derek is frantically trying to delete group chat messages, but each one he removes seems to reappear moments later, captured somewhere beyond his reach. Outside the war room, the sun is setting over Coronado, painting the Pacific in shades of orange and red. The base continues its evening routine, hundreds of personnel unaware that in one building, everything they thought that they knew about rank, authority, and identity is about to be turned completely inside out. And in the red-lit war room, Mara Vance waits with the patience of someone who spent 2 years preparing for exactly this moment, waiting for exactly these people to commit exactly these mistakes, all while wearing a staff sergeant's chevrons and letting everyone assume they knew who she was. The challenge coin sits on the table between them, its serial number catching the emergency lighting. Jason can't stop looking at it because he knows what it means. He knows where it comes from. And he knows that if the woman who owns that coin is standing in front of him, then everything he thought was true about the past 2 years is a lie designed specifically for him. His career isn't just ending. It's been over since the moment she walked onto his range this morning. He just didn't know it yet. 3 minutes pass in the red-washed war room. Jason's mind cycles through scenarios, each one ending in career destruction or worse. The coin on the table seems to grow heavier with each second that ticks by, its presence demanding explanations he doesn't want to give. His carefully constructed authority has collapsed into rubble around him, and the woman he's spent all day humiliating stands there looking like she's simply waiting for a bus. Blake finally sits down, his bravado evaporating under the weight of Admiral Lowell's voice still echoing in the speaker system. Derek has stopped trying to delete messages after the 5th one reappeared with a notification. Document recovery in progress. JSOC archive protocol. Luis has abandoned his camera controls entirely, stepping away from the equipment like it might bite him. The speaker crackles again, but this time there's no voice, just static, holding the room in suspension. Then footsteps in the corridor outside, not the casual pace of someone passing by, but the measured stride of personnel who know exactly where they're going and why. Jason's pulse spikes. He looks at Mara, searching her face for any hint of satisfaction or triumph. There's nothing, just that same neutral patience, like she's watching events unfold from a safe distance rather than standing in the center of them. Staff Sergeant, Jason's voice cracks slightly. He clears his throat, trying again. I think we should discuss this privately. Whatever you believe you know about... No. One word. Delivered without heat or emphasis. Just a simple negation that somehow carries more weight than any speech could. Jason stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound that makes several SEALs flinch. He moves toward Mara, closing the distance with aggressive intent that he's probably not even aware of. His training is breaking down, replaced by panic wearing the mask of authority. Listen to me. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but you need to understand something. He reaches for her shoulder, intending to physically turn her toward him, to reassert control through proximity and force of presence. His hand catches her right sleeve instead. The fabric is old, weakened by multiple deployments and harsh laundering. When he pulls, it tears. The sound of ripping cloth is sharp in the silent room. Jason's hand comes away holding a strip of digital camouflage material, and beneath where that sleeve covered her shoulder and upper arm, ink appears in the emergency lighting. Dark lines, geometric patterns, and 3 distinct elements that make Chief Ramirez surge to his feet with an audible gasp. The tattoo covers Mara's shoulder and extends down her bicep in a design that's both simple and impossibly complex. At the center, a skull with a trident piercing through it, rendered in black ink that's faded slightly with time, but remains unmistakable. Above the skull, 3 characters enclosed in thick bars, the kind of redaction marks used on classified documents. Only fragments of the letters are visible, enough to suggest JSOC, but deliberately obscured, below a 7 and a 0, separated by a dash. But it's the border that makes the design truly distinctive. A chain of coordinates, dates, and alphanumeric codes wraps around the entire piece, each element placed with precision that suggests purpose beyond decoration. This isn't artwork. It's a record, a living document etched into skin. The room goes completely silent, not the silence of people waiting to speak, but the silence of people whose cognitive frameworks have just shattered. Several SEALs lean forward involuntarily, trying to see more clearly. Blake's mouth hangs open. Even Instructor Cole looks shaken, his professional skepticism collapsing into something that might be recognition or might be fear. Chief Ramirez speaks first, his voice rough with shock. "That's Omega Red clearance." His eyes lock onto the coordinates visible along the tattoo's edge. "Those are operation codes. Those don't exist outside secure facilities." Jason steps back like he's been burned. The torn sleeve hangs from his hand, forgotten. His face cycles through expressions too quickly to catalog, landing finally on something between horror and disbelief. No, that's not possible. Those operators are ghosts. They don't have ranks. They don't wear uniforms. They definitely don't show up as staff sergeants at Coronado. Mara's posture shifts subtly, not aggressive, but no longer passive either. She stands with the bearing of someone who stopped pretending to be small. Her right hand moves to her left shoulder, fingers tracing the edge of the tattoo with casual familiarity. "The Ghost Division is a myth," Jason continues, his voice rising with each word. "It's a story they tell junior officers to scare them into following security protocols. There's no classified unit that operates without documentation, without chain of command oversight, without the people they hunt knowing they exist," Mara interrupts. "That was the point." Her voice has changed, still quiet, but carrying an edge that suggests she's done accommodating his worldview. She reaches into her other cargo pocket and pulls out her phone. The screen is locked with a security protocol none of them recognize, patterns within patterns that shift as she inputs her access code. When the screen unlocks, she turns it toward the room. The image displayed is a photograph, slightly grainy from being taken in low-light conditions. It shows a tactical team in full kit, faces obscured by night vision gear and shemogs. The location is clearly Middle Eastern, all sand and crumbling concrete. Timestamp in the corner reads 2 years, 3 months, and 14 days ago. In the center of the photo stands a figure in operator gear, and standing next to that figure, clearly visible despite the tactical clothing, is Jason Keene, younger, leaner, with the confident bearing of a field commander who hasn't yet learned what failure costs. The photo is stamped with classifications so high that most of the people in this room have never seen them before. SCF access only, no foreign nationals, restricted distribution to personnel with verified operational need to know, and at the bottom, partially obscured but readable, Operation Helix Dawn. "Syria," Mara says, "August 16th, 0300 local time. You were the team leader. I was asset support, embedded with your unit for intelligence collection and high-value target interdiction." Jason's face drains of color. His hand finds the edge of the table, gripping it like a lifeline. "That's classified beyond anything you should have access to. If you're really who you claim to be, then you know you can't show that photograph to unauthorized personnel." "Everyone in this room just got authorized," Mara responds. "Admiral Lowell granted emergency clearance override 17 minutes ago. We're all read into Operation Helix Dawn now. Congratulations." She swipes to the next image. This one shows the aftermath of an ambush. Vehicles burning, equipment scattered, defensive positions hastily abandoned. The tactical situation is clear even to non-operators. Someone called a retreat under fire, leaving personnel behind. "The mission was compromised," Mara continues. "Enemy forces had advance intelligence about our timing and approach vector. Someone fed them information. In the chaos of the ambush, extraction protocols failed. Your team pulled back to secondary rally point. You filed a report stating all personnel accounted for." Another swipe. This image is a document, an official after-action report with Jason's signature at the bottom. The personnel accountability section lists every team member with recovered next to their names. No exceptions, no casualties, no missing operators. "But someone wasn't recovered," Jake Willis says from the doorway. His voice is quiet but carries across the room. "You left her there." Jason's grip on the table tightens until his knuckles go white. The situation was untenable. We had casualties, compromised communications, and enemy forces closing from 3 directions. Standard protocol is to withdraw to defensible positions and call for extraction support. That's exactly what I did. "Standard protocol," Mara agrees. "Except for the part where you declared me KIA without confirming the kill. Except for the part where you filed paperwork stating I'd been recovered when you knew I was still in the field. Except for the part where you told JSOC Command that there were no personnel left behind when you'd made the tactical decision to abandon an asset because extraction was inconvenient." The words hit like physical blows. Several SEALs exchange glances, their earlier mockery transforming into something uncomfortable and sharp. Blake looks like he's going to be sick. Derek has stopped touching his phone entirely, both hands flat on the table, as if he's afraid to move. Luis Vargas finds his voice, though it comes out higher than usual. But if you were left behind, how did you... the report says... JSOC found me, Mara says simply. 36 hours after Commander Keen withdrew. I'd evaded enemy patrols, survived on emergency supplies, and made it to a secondary extraction point we'd designated for worst-case scenarios. Admiral Lowell authorized a recovery team. They pulled me out with multiple GSW, shrapnel wounds, and mild exposure. Medical treatment took 4 months. Psychological evaluation took another 3. She pauses, letting the timeline sink in. And then Admiral Lowell made me an offer. Come back from the dead. Let everyone believe the KIA report was accurate, and help them figure out who compromised Operation Helix Dawn. Because the intelligence leak wasn't a one-time mistake. It was systematic. Someone inside JSOC was feeding information to hostile actors, and they needed a ghost to catch the traitor. The speaker system crackles again. This time, Admiral Lowell's voice is clear, carrying the weight of command that comes from decades of special operations leadership. Redacted Operative 07 confirmed active. Commander Keen, you are instructed to remain in place. Master-at-Arms personnel are en route to your location. All witnesses are directed to maintain position for formal debriefing. Jason tries one last time to salvage something from the wreckage. This is insane. You can't possibly believe that I intentionally compromised missions. I served with distinction for 15 operations, Mara interrupts. Over 26 months. Every single one experienced some form of intelligence compromise. Not enough to cause mission failure, but enough to create casualties, complicate extraction, and generate plausible deniability. You weren't selling complete tactical plans. You were selling timing windows, approach vectors, and personnel rosters. Just enough information to make every operation more dangerous without being obviously catastrophic. She swipes to another image on her phone. This one shows financial records, bank transfers moving through multiple offshore accounts. The amounts aren't huge by military contract standards, but they're significant enough to notice. Each transfer correlates with a date that matches classified operation timelines. The money came from a defense contractor called Apex Horizon Solutions. They specialize in private security, training programs, and equipment sales to foreign governments. Legitimate business on the surface, but their client list includes several governments and organizations with interests that directly oppose United States operations in contested regions. Chief Ramirez stands near the back, processing everything he's hearing through the filter of 2 decades in special operations. You spent 2 years as bait. You let him think he'd gotten away with it, came back under a false rank, and waited for him to compromise himself further. I collected evidence, Mara corrects. Everything Commander Keen has done since I arrived at Coronado has been documented, recited, and logged. Every group chat message, every false report, every attempt to force my transfer or discredit my performance. All of it creates a pattern of behavior consistent with someone who has something to hide and will take aggressive action to protect that secret. Blake finally finds his voice, though it's stripped of all its earlier bravado. We didn't know. The messages, the jokes. We were just following his lead. You thought mockery was acceptable because your commander sanctioned it, Jake Willis says from his position by the door. You thought cruelty was just unit culture. You didn't ask questions because not asking was easier than admitting you might be wrong. The judgment in his voice makes Blake flinch. Derek looks at his phone like it's betrayed him. All those carefully crafted messages now evidence in a federal investigation. Luis Vargas stares at the camera equipment, understanding finally that every sabotage attempt has been captured in detail by systems designed specifically for that purpose. If this story has grabbed you, if you need to see how justice plays out, hit that share button. Send this to someone who needs to see that accountability still matters. And drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is just getting started. The war room door opens. 2 Master-at-Arms personnel enter, their presence changing the atmosphere from confrontational to procedural. They're not aggressive, but their authority is absolute and backed by the full weight of military justice. Commander Jason Keen, the senior MA announces, You are being detained pending investigation into charges of unauthorized disclosure of classified information, falsification of official documents, and violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice Article 92 and Article 107. You are instructed to surrender your credentials and accompany us to secure holding. Jason doesn't move immediately. He's staring at Mara with an expression that cycles between rage, humiliation, and desperate calculation. You don't understand what you've done. The people I worked with, they're not gonna just let this go. Apex Horizon has reached beyond military channels. You've made yourself a target. Mara's expression doesn't change. I've been a target since Syria. The difference is now everyone knows it, which makes me significantly harder to eliminate quietly. The Master-at-Arms stepped closer, not threatening but insistent. Jason finally moves, standing from the table with mechanical precision. His command presence has completely evaporated, replaced by the hollow awareness that everything he built has collapsed. As he's escorted toward the door, he stops next to Mara. The MA's tense, ready to intervene if he tries anything, but he just speaks in a voice barely above a whisper. 2 years. You spent 2 years pretending to be weak. No, Mara corrects quietly. I spent 2 years being exactly as strong as necessary, while you showed everyone who you really were. The door closes behind Jason and his escorts. The remaining personnel sit in stunned silence, processing the fact that their commander just got arrested for treason and they've spent the entire day helping him build his own case. Admiral Lowell's voice returns through the speaker system, now addressing the room at large. All personnel present are now under operational security restrictions. You will remain in this facility for formal debriefing by JSOC security teams. Your cooperation in this investigation is not optional. Your devices will be collected for forensic analysis, and your testimony will be documented under oath. She pauses, letting the weight of that sink in. For those of you who participated in harassment, intimidation, or document falsification, understand that your level of knowledge and intent will be factors in determining appropriate consequences. Ignorance of Commander Keen's broader activities does not excuse your behavior, but cooperation now may mitigate the severity of administrative action. Blake and Derek exchange glances. Luis looks at his hands. Even Instructor Cole appears shaken, his professional detachment cracking under the realization that his stress test contributed to a federal case. Chief Warrant Officer Vance, Admiral Lowell continues, and the use of Mara's real rank makes several people gasp. You are released from operational cover protocol. Your actual credentials and service record will be restored within 72 hours. Well done. The speaker clicks off with finality. Mara remains standing, but her posture shifts again, this time into genuine ease. She rolls her shoulder, the exposed tattoo moving with the motion, and for the first time all day she allows herself a small smile. Chief Ramirez approaches her carefully, respect evident in every movement. Chief Warrant Officer, 20 years in the teams, and I've never seen anything like this. That patience, that discipline, how do you maintain cover for 2 years knowing what people are saying about you? By remembering what I'm actually here to do, Mara responds. Their opinions were never the mission. Catching the traitor was the mission. Everything else was just noise. Jake Willis steps fully into the room now that the immediate tension has broken. The medical bay work, all those months. You could have corrected us, could have shown your real credentials, but you just did the job. Because doing the job is its own credential, Mara says. Skills speak louder than rank. I wanted to see who would recognize competence regardless of what collar device I wore. You did. Chief Ramirez did. Most people didn't look past the chevrons to see the actual person. She turns to address the remaining SEALs, her voice taking on a different quality. Not harsh, but absolutely clear. You're going to be interviewed about your actions today. My advice is to be honest about your motivations and your awareness. Trying to minimize your behavior will only make the investigation longer and more painful. Own what you did. Explain why you did it. And think seriously about whether you want to be the kind of operators who blindly follow leadership into illegal and unethical behavior. Blake clears his throat, the sound rough with shame. Chief Warrant Officer, we didn't know. That's not an excuse, I understand that. But we genuinely believed Commander Keen was maintaining standards, not covering crimes. You believed what was comfortable to believe, Mara corrects. You didn't ask questions because asking would have meant examining your own prejudices. You saw medical corps and female and made assumptions that let you feel superior. That's the behavior that needs to change, regardless of whether Jason Keene is prosecuted or not. The truth of that hits hard. Derek's phone buzzes with another notification, but he doesn't check it. Luis still hasn't moved from his position away from the camera controls. The instructors look at each other, silently acknowledging their own failures to intervene when they saw something wrong. The war room door opens again. This time it's a full JSOC security team, 6 personnel with credentials that supersede any local authority. They're efficient and professional, collecting devices, separating witnesses, and beginning the methodical process of documentation that will feed into investigations spanning multiple agencies. Mara is escorted to a separate room for her own debriefing, though the tone is completely different. These aren't investigators treating her as a subject. These are colleagues welcoming back an operator who's successfully completed a long-term assignment. Hours pass. The sun sets completely, leaving Coronado in darkness, punctuated by streetlights and building windows. Inside various secure rooms, testimonies are recorded, evidence is processed, and the full scope of Commander Keene's activities begins to emerge. The financial trail leads to 12 separate operations where intelligence was compromised. The casualty list includes 3 operators with permanent injuries, 7 local assets who were exposed and executed, and countless mission complications that seemed like bad luck at the time, but now show clear patterns of deliberate sabotage. Blake's testimony reveals that he'd noticed inconsistencies in intelligence briefings, but dismissed them because questioning a commander's judgment felt like insubordination. Derek admits that the group chat culture was toxic, but he participated because being part of the inner circle felt like protection. Luis confesses that he'd planted evidence in lockers before, always at Keene's direction, and never questioned whether the targets actually deserved investigation. The layers of consequence cascade outward like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. Immediate accountability for everyone involved. Personal reckonings as individuals confront their complicity. Professional repercussions as careers are derailed or redirected. Community impacts as SEAL Team 9 undergoes leadership review. Institutional changes as JSOC tightens security protocols and creates new whistleblower protections. And legacy effects that will reshape how Coronado handles integration and harassment for years to come. By 2300 hours, Mara is finally released from debriefing. She walks back to her quarters through empty pathways, the base quiet in that particular way military installations get late at night. Her shoulder aches where the tattoo sits, a phantom pain that's probably psychosomatic but feels real enough. Jake Willis is waiting outside her building, sitting on a bench despite the late hour. He stands when he sees her approaching. "Couldn't sleep," he says, by way of explanation. "Kept thinking about all the times I worked alongside you and never questioned why a staff sergeant had skill sets that didn't match her training record." "You trusted the uniform," Mara says. "That's not wrong. It's what makes the system work most of the time. But not this time. This time, the system needed someone who could operate outside it while still following the rules that matter." She sits on the bench, gesturing for him to join her. "I couldn't have done this alone. Having even one person treat me with basic decency, that mattered more than you probably realize." They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, processing the day's events. Finally, Jake asks the question that's been bothering him since the revelation. "Why medical corps? If you're actually special operations, why not come back as an instructor or an advisor, someone with obvious authority?" "Because people treat medical personnel differently," Mara explains. "They underestimate us, dismiss us as support rather than operational. It's the perfect cover for someone who needs to observe without being watched too closely. And honestly, the medical work was real. Those skills are part of why I survived Syria. Helping people, saving lives, that's not just cover. It's part of who I am, regardless of rank." Jake nods slowly, accepting that complexity. "So, what happens now? Do you stay at Coronado, or does JSOC pull you back for the next ghost operation?" "Honestly, I don't know yet." Mara looks up at the night sky, stars visible despite the ambient light. Admiral Lowell mentioned something during debrief. Apex Horizon Solutions wasn't just receiving intelligence from Commander Keene. They were part of a larger network, and Jason was a relatively small player. There's someone higher up the chain, someone with access to multiple bases and classified programs. "Another operation," Jake says. "It's not a question." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just done being a ghost." She rolls her shoulder again, the tattoo hidden once more beneath her uniform. 2 years is a long time to pretend you don't exist. Part of me wants to just be a chief warrant officer again, do the work openly, train the next generation properly. Before Jake can respond, Mara's phone vibrates. She checks the screen, her expression shifting from tired contentment to alert focus. The message is short, from a number with no caller ID. Tower 4 sends regards. We know what you found. We know who you really are. And we have interests that extend beyond one commander's mistakes. Jake sees her reaction. What is it? Mara shows him the message. His face goes serious. That's a threat. That's confirmation, Mara corrects. Confirmation that the network is bigger than we thought, and that they're watching. She stands, her tactical mind already running through protocols and responses. I need to report this to Admiral Lowell immediately. But even as she moves toward the secure communication facility, another part of her mind is analyzing the threat from a different angle. Tower 4 isn't just a code name. It's a reference to specific facilities in Eastern Europe where Apex Horizon maintains training compounds. Facilities that officially host legitimate defensive training for allied nations, but actually serve as recruitment and coordination centers for private military operations that skirt international law. She'd suspected their existence, but hadn't found confirmation until now. And by threatening her directly, Tower 4 has just confirmed everything JSOC suspected about their scope and capabilities. Inside the secure facility, Admiral Lowell listens to Mara's report, with the focus of someone who's fought intelligence wars for 30 years. When Mara finishes, the Admiral leans back in her chair, expression thoughtful. Tower 4. We've had that designation flagged for 18 months, but couldn't get solid intelligence about their structure. Commander Keen was supposed to be our way in, but his arrest probably just accelerated their timeline. They're trying to intimidate me into silence, Mara says. Standard intimidation protocol for intelligence operators who get too close. Or they're testing your response, Admiral Lowell counters, seeing if you'll go dark, escalate, or ignore the threat. Each response gives them information about JSOC's awareness and capabilities. Mara considers that. So, what's our play? Your play, Admiral Lowell corrects, is to rest, recover, and receive the commendation you've earned. Your cover operation is complete. Commander Keen is in custody. The immediate threat has been neutralized. But Tower 4 will be handled by other assets through other channels, the Admiral says firmly. You've been operational for 26 months without meaningful downtime. You're experiencing psychological and physical stress that needs addressing before you take any new assignments. That's not optional, Chief Warrant Officer. That's an order. Mara wants to argue, but military discipline and genuine exhaustion combine to make acceptance easier. Understood, ma'am. Good. You'll be reassigned to JSOC Training Command for the next 6 months. Light duty, instruction-focused, giving you time to decompress while still contributing meaningfully. After that, we'll discuss whether you want back in the field or prefer a permanent training position. And Tower 4, Admiral Lowell's smile is cold and precise. Tower 4 has made a tactical error by revealing themselves. We'll exploit that error appropriately. But not tonight. And not with an asset who needs recovery time. The conversation ends, but as Mara walks back to her quarters for the second time that night, her mind is already turning over possibilities. Tower 4 exists. They know about her. And somewhere in their operations, there's a weakness that can be exploited. But for now, for tonight, she's just tired. Tired from 2 years of performance, tired from a day of calculated exposure, and tired from the weight of maintaining perfect discipline under impossible circumstances. Back in her room, she finally changes out of her torn uniform. The tattoo on her shoulder catches light from the desk lamp, ink lines telling a story that most people will never be cleared to hear. She traces the coordinates with one finger, remembering each operation, each near-death experience, each moment where being a ghost meant surviving when existing would have meant dying. Tomorrow will bring formal proceedings, official commendations, and the administrative machinery of restoration. Her real rank will be acknowledged. Her service record will be unsealed for those with appropriate clearance. And the people who mocked her will have to reconcile their behavior with the reality of who she actually is. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of her quarters, Mara Vance allows herself something she hasn't permitted in 2 years. She allows herself to exist without performance, without calculation, without the constant awareness that every action is being observed and judged. She sleeps deeply for the first time since Syria, dreamless and complete. 3 days later, the consequences have crystallized into concrete actions. Commander Jason Keene faces 12 counts of unauthorized disclosure, 3 counts of falsifying official documents, and 7 counts of conduct unbecoming an officer. His preliminary hearing is scheduled for 45 days out, giving prosecutors time to build an airtight case from the evidence collected. Lieutenant Blake Harmon receives formal reprimand and mandatory training on professional conduct and bias awareness. His SEAL qualification remains intact, but his advancement prospects are damaged, possibly permanently. Chief Derek Nash loses his position and receives reduction in rank to Petty Officer First Class. His digital trail of harassment was too extensive and too deliberate to excuse as following orders. Luis Vargas faces administrative separation from service. His pattern of evidence planting extends beyond Mara's case and suggests systematic abuse of his position. Instructor Evan Cole receives official counseling and is removed from evaluation duties pending review of his methods. The institutional response is comprehensive. SEAL Team 9 undergoes complete leadership restructuring. Coronado implements new reporting channels for harassment and discrimination. JSOC creates explicit protocols for protecting deep-cover operatives from friendly fire. And the range where this all began gets renamed, a memorial to the principle that competence exists independent of rank. On the 4th day, there's a small ceremony in an unremarkable conference room. No media, no public announcement, just a handful of officers and the presentation of a commendation that will remain classified for another 20 years. Admiral Lowell pins the medal to Mara's uniform herself, the significance of the gesture not lost on anyone present. For exceptional performance in the conduct of special operations requiring sustained psychological endurance, tactical discipline, and unwavering commitment to mission success despite extreme personal cost. Chief Ramirez attends, standing at attention with genuine respect. Jake Willis is there too, honored to witness the recognition of someone he worked beside without understanding what she carried. But as the ceremony concludes and people filter out, Mara's phone vibrates one last time. Another message from the same unknown number. Enjoy your medal, Tower 4 is patient, and we remember our debts. She reads it twice, then deletes it without responding. Because Admiral Lowell was right about one thing. Tower 4 made an error by reaching out. They revealed their awareness, their concern, and their continued activity. And somewhere down the line, when Mara's recovered and ready, when the next operation spins up, and JSOC needs someone who can disappear while staying visible, she'll remember this message. She'll remember that justice isn't always immediate, that accountability sometimes takes years to manifest. That strength isn't volume or aggression, but the discipline to wait until the moment is right. The war isn't over, but this battle is won. And as Mara walks out of the conference room into California sunshine, her real rank finally acknowledged and her service finally recognized, she allows herself a small smile and one simple truth spoken quietly to no one but herself. They wanted me buried. I chose patience. The story of Field Barbie ends here, but the story of Chief Warrant Officer Mara Vance and her quiet war against the networks that compromise honor from within, that story is just beginning.